About 8 months ago, I did a video on the restoration of this lovely British model steam engine, which is a Swan M1. Now, I was really lucky to get this. This was an eBay find. It was complete. It really just needed cosmetic restoration. But at the time, and in that video, I said that these are extremely rare. But I also said that the company that made these, Holbrand Engineering from Wolverhampton, they made another one, which is even rarer, the Swan M2. So, a few weeks ago, I was scouring eBay, as I do, and I found this. Yes, unbelievable. This is a Swan M2. Now, as you can see, they're very similar. They share basically the same firebox, and the boiler fittings are all the same. I think it's the same cylinder and piston. However, there are some quite significant differences between these two engines. So we will take a closer look at the M2 because that's going to be the subject of this video. So here's the Swan M2. Now this one has got some parts missing and basically is going to need quite a bit more work than the M1. First of all, as you can basically very obviously see, the chimney is missing. Well, as far as I can tell, looking at the few pictures online of the M2, the chimney is identical to the M1. And I've got the M1 chimney, so I can hopefully make a replica for the M2. Secondly, this is not the original burner. It's the burner that came with it. But, I mean, that's actually quite a nice little burner. That would be ideal for one of my vertical boilered older German engines. That would be perfect for that. But no, the actual burner for the M2, again, this is all, I have to go on the few pictures that are available online. But the actual burner for the M2 is identical to the, as far as I can tell, the M1. So it should be one of those, basically. But there you go. I'm not too worried about the burners because they quite often are missing on these steam engines, and I will run the engine on a gas burner anyway. So what else? Well, the base is very definitely not the original base. The original base on the M2, the only one I've seen in pictures, it's a wooden block base, so it's about 8 inches square by about ½ inch thick, and it has a lithographed metal plate screwed to the top. As you can see, let's remove the burner and tip this up. As you can see, that is a bit of checker plate aluminium, kind of stuff that's used in pickup truck beds and footsteps and stuff like that. So this is obviously a modern bit of metal that's been used as a base. It could well be that the original base simply fell apart. I mean, this engine could easily be 100 years old. We know that they were made somewhere between 1920 and 1925. So yes, it could well be over 100 years old. But apart from that, those things, and again, those things are easily fixed. Now I'm not going to attempt to make the patterned metal base plate because it's beyond my capabilities to do it. But certainly I can get a nice piece of wood for the base, roughly the right size, and I can put an aluminium skin on it, which I'll spray black so that it will much more closely resemble the original engine than it does at the moment. What else? Well, as you can see straight away, one of the biggest differences is that the M2 has a much bigger flywheel on it than the M1. Also, I think we can see the firebox on the M2 was lithographed too, and you can just see there faintly there's a little tiny bit of the original lithograph markings still on the firebox, and also there's a little tiny bit of red here as well. You can see that, but most of it's burnt off over the course of time. So yeah, it's an amazing engine. I'm so pleased to get this. The guy had it on eBay at a buy it now price, but he was open to offers. He had described it as unknown. He thought it was possibly German, but I recognised it for what it was straight away when I saw it, and I just thought, no, I made him an offer and he accepted it. So I'm very, very lucky to actually have this. Right, well, let it come round, and then I'll bring the M1 back in again, and we can have a look at the at the engine castings, because they do, at first glance, they do look very similar, but they are not. There's quite dramatic differences between the two. Okay, here we've got the two side by side. If you look at the the two engine castings, now obviously on the M2 it's mounted on a plinth, and this is obviously simply because the flywheel is so much bigger and you need to raise the engine up to get the clearance for the flywheel. But if you look at the two castings, there are some very distinct differences. Now, first of all, the crank support boss here, it's much longer on the M2, and it's also thinner. This is a much thicker crank boss here. This web here on the casting is very, very slim and thin on the M2. On the M1, it's much thicker. It comes out there. The M2 has this web at the back here, which the M1 does not have. And again, this webbing at the bottom comes out much further here than it does here on the M1. There are quite some significant differences between the castings, and once you have a close look at them, you can see that. So yeah, so the next job then will be to yes, there was one other difference. Hang on a minute, let me come out and come back in. On the M1, the regulator is on top of the boiler. On the M2, the regulator is on top of the engine block here. So there is that is a definite difference. So yes, so as I said, there are differences. Also, of course, the levers on the controls on the M1 have a bent over end. They're straight on the M2. Cosmetic that, obviously, but also, of course, we have this cutout on tops of the firebox on the M2, which we don't have on the M1. So yeah, there are some significant differences between the two engines. They are not the same by any margin. Right, so next job, get the M2 stripped down.